Oz, the wizard. The Wizard of Oz realized something. He hadn't had sex for the past 20 years. Granted, he could have sexually mingled with the wicked witches of the East and West, but unfortunately, neither were interested in fellatio. So, that was no fun for Oz. Especially since Oz's proverb in life was, sex is pointless if your throat isn't getting fucked. He never had the opportunity in becoming sexually involved with the Munchkins, since they feared him as supposed great and terrible wizard. Which was a shame for him, since he often fantasized about one Munchkin sucking his penis and another eating out of his asshole simultaneously, while his mouth sinks into another Munchkin's genitals. Unfortunately, it was probably for the better. For if he were to have sex with all of them, they'd soon discover that he was merely just a simple commoner from Omaha, Nebraska. Oh, Omaha. Oz fondly thought of his hometown. He missed the joy of being with folk that were willing to be sexually involved. Sometimes he'd bring along 2 inebriated women into the circus, since he was a ventriloquist. Making sure no one was there, they then performed a 4-way with the lion. That thrill of rubbing his wet penis against the chained lion's tail as the jungle cat roared at the cowering women almost hardened his nipples as his ecstasy ignited into a surge of sweat all over his body. He also enjoyed involving inanimate objects in his sexual pursuits as well, which additionally helped him practice his ventriloquism. When he was 14, he'd insert his penis through a ventriloquist dummy. He'd emulate a moaning, slurping sound through his mouth while his penis kept thrusting through the dummy's gaping mouth. The bits of chipped wood surrounding its mouth prickled against his penis, heightening his orgasms. However, he was much more enticed by scarecrows. Every night he would wander into the cornfield, gazing at that scarecrow which was dressed in overalls and a checkered long-sleeved shirt, hung up on its stick with its arms sprung out. From behind the scarecrow, Oz tore a hole and inserted his penis. He moaned as hay scratched against his foreskin. His fingernails dug into the scarecrow's overalls. Harder! Harder! He'd ventriloquize as the scarecrow. And he'd respond in his real voice, "Oh yes, oh my!" pressing his crotch through the scarecrow. Oz yearned in returning back to Omaha, back to the circus, back home, where he could have all the sex he wanted with anyone and everything that he desired. Yet, how was the question? How could he leave this strange land? That answer came to him once he encountered Dorothy and her 3 companions, one of them a lion and the other a scarecrow. Peering through his projector while hidden behind his screen, they intrigued him. They stood there like humans, both having the ability to move around and talk. He wanted to fuck them. Oz hoped they both were turned on by his illusion that disguised his identity. Unfortunately, they seemed disinterested in sex when he spoke with each of them separately in his throne room. The scarecrow rambled on about his desire for a brain when Oz's projector took the form of a woman. And the lion rambled on about his desire for courage when Oz's projector took the form of fire. Annoyed, he demanded that they both go forth and destroy the wicked witch of the West with Dorothy and Tin Woodman. Oz figured that they would end up dead. Since he figured anyone that wasn't into fellatio, like the Wicked Witch, would be nothing but just a cold-blooded killer. And he felt that the lion and the scarecrow deserved death. For he always abided by his own motto in life: you either fuck me or die. Plus, how could he grant their wishes when he couldn't even grant his own wish? His heart ached for home. Several weeks later, he suddenly heard the Munchkins outside his palace, loudly chanting, "Ding dong, the bitch is dead, the bitch is dead, la la dee da la da 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 la." His face grew pale. He had hoped that they'd been dead since they made a false promise in providing for all their silly demands. Hours later, there they stood, waiting for him. Trembling, he requested they return tomorrow morning, but they remained persistent, each of them stating their specific promise. Suddenly, the lion began roaring furiously. Oz became very turned on by it. But before he could even masturbate, his scream crashed to the floor, for little Toto had scurried into it as the fearful response to the lion. "Oh no," Oz thought to himself. "They know my true face now." Oz cowered and cried out, "Please, oh please, don't hurt me. I can help you somehow. I promise I'll do anything. Anything." The four individuals then looked at each other. Toto began barking. "You're an awful man," said Dorothy, "but Aunt Em always told me that I should never judge others by their actions." "I agree," said the Scarecrow. "In fact, I won't kill you if you have sex with me. I was actually turned on by your female illusion from a few weeks earlier, but since I have no brain, I couldn't react properly." The lion then nodded and said, "I'll have sex with you too. Your ball of fire illusion turned me on as well, but since I was a coward, I was too scared to touch myself." The Tin Woodman then remarked with, "I have no heart, so therefore I have no interest in threesomes, but I'd like to watch." Then finally Dorothy beamed with, "I'll just hold Toto and have him poo all over me." Oz was speechless and could only respond by unbuttoning his shirt and taking off his pants. Moments later, Oz found himself lying against the Scarecrow, with the lion sandwiched on top of him, his lips pressed against the Scarecrow's painted lips as his penis daggered through the crotch of hay. His entire back was blanketed in the lion's fur. The lion lightly pierced his claws against Oz's shoulders, thrusting his thick penis through his asshole. Oz could feel blood oozing out. It tantalized him. Meanwhile, Dorothy skipped around the trio as she held Toto and watched poo trickle against their bodies. The Tin Woodman watched, occasionally commenting with, "Oh boy, I can't wait to have a heart." The Scarecrow and the lion then switched positions. This time Oz crouched over, his face buried in the lion's furry crotch, sucking his furry balls and slurping up the lion's dripping semen. He gagged, but with delight. The Scarecrow pressed his crotch against Oz's ass, allowing the hay to scrape through his bare skin. Several hours later, the trio lay together on the floor, covered in poo. The others gave them the privacy by exiting the room. Smiling, Oz exhaled. He thought back to his former life. Him fucking scarecrows and lions. He felt so young and energetic again. He suddenly wanted to fly. And that was it. It finally came to him. He just needed to fly back home. Perhaps he truly was the wizard after all.